We'll go a little bit into your backstory. Walk us through your W-2 job, what you did, and how you got introduced to financial freedom movement in general, and how you got started investing in real estate.
So I think it first starts off where I learned about financial freedom is coming right out of college. I go for a trip to Europe. I travel for around a month and a half, and it only cost me around $5,000. So I see there that if I could make some type of income around $5,000 a month and I don't have to be location dependent, I could go over and travel to Europe and do these things. Even if I'm working at the same time, I could do that for $5,000 a month. So that's what I need to make. At that point, I am working in New York. I'm sleeping on my cousin's couch. At one point, my girlfriend breaks up to me. So everything is just shitty at that time. So I'm like, how do I get off this couch? So I start learning about personal finance. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I do the typical thing. Gets me involved in real estate. I buy a house hack. From the house hack, that takes a little while to do a big renovation on. It's a 4-unit building. It was condemned. Learned so much from that. But then from there, I started doing the real estate thing, buying more real estate with my partners, building up cash flow and building me to the point where I'm at, where my cash flow can support my lifestyle and I can live off of that cash flow.
So what made you want to do the partnership model in the beginning? Obviously, you had your first house hack. And then what made you take the jump from doing the solo show to playing a team sport? Because that's something a lot of people struggle with, especially in the beginning, is figuring out, they're like, I want everything to myself, and then they can't think about splitting it up and divvying it up with other people. So can you speak to that process and kind of the pros and cons?
Right. So I had the same idea, right? I wanted all the real estate. I wanted all the cash flow. And that's one thing that I did not sacrifice. I knew that I had an area and I had the local expertise. I was the boots on the ground. So I knew that I could leverage that as a negotiation tactic to get somebody to come in on a deal with me. If I found a great deal with equity built into it, I knew I could get somebody to come in with me, put money down. So that's one reason why I wanted the partnership model. I didn't have cash sitting around to go buy property. So if I could find somebody to put down half of that amount to buy that property with me, that would make it easier for me to buy. I strategically structured these partnerships to buy small multifamily buildings with a partner who was only interested in an equity gain and the tax write-offs from real estate. So he wasn't interested in the cash flow. I was interested in the cash flow. My agreement with him was, listen, I'll put down 50% to buy these properties. You put down 50%. You don't have to think about it. I'm going to manage the deal. I am going to manage the tenants. I found the deal, but I get to take all the cash flow. I'm doing the management. You don't touch it. You can take tax benefits, but I'm taking all the cash flow out of this deal. If I could make around $5,000 a month and I don't have to be location dependent, I could go over and travel to Europe and do these things. So that's what I need to make. At that point, for me, I still get the 100%. What did I want from real estate? I didn't care about net worth. I didn't care about anything like that. I wanted the cash flow. That's what's going to get me out of the rat race. So I strategically structured it so that I still get all the cash flow, but I only have to bring 50% down to close.
Okay, and then when you were closing on these, was this like a 20%? So you were bringing 10% to purchase?
Yeah, we had some 10% down hard money loans, and then we were buying these things like a duplex at $160K that was worth, at that time, $200K, and then the market was crazy, so 3 months later, it was worth $220K. Even putting 10% down on the $160K, we're putting 16% down. Once we had the $220K value, and we're only $160,000 into it, you do your refinance with a $220K value, you're pulling out your whole $160K injection in there. So yeah.
So basically,
I used mostly hard money to get in, so I didn't have to bring as much down to the table.
For your own percentage?
For my own percentage, for my partner's percentage. He was also one way that I structured those deals and decided who I wanted my partners to be. I didn't know a lot about banks. I didn't have bank power. I didn't have the bank account to show to these banks. This guy had that, and he had the bank connections. That was another good thing about my partnership, is that he could talk to the banks, he could bring in different lenders, and have all these types of creative financing options for us.
Yeah, I love the idea of it, because you go back to the deal triangle that we talk about on the show a lot, where you either need the knowledge, the money, or the hustle. And so you were like, hey, man, I've got the knowledge. So you were especially lethal because you had the knowledge and you had the hustle. You just needed the capital and the banking relationship, the assets, the balance sheet. So when you're doing these deals, I like the idea of it, right, about taking the cash flow, managing the deal. You're like, I'm going to take this headache, but give me the cash flow. You take the balance sheet. So did you sacrifice equity position in these deals? Like, how was this? Did you have zero equity, or did you just structure it to where he had a majority stake of equity? How was that?
No, it was a 50-50 equity split.
So he just got to write off everything as the depreciation. So he got to write off 100% of the tax benefit. You just got to keep the cash flow.
Correct. Yep.
Genius.
Right.
So let's put a pin in that. Let's stick on that point. Explain that point one more time for somebody that's listening, that's maybe new to the game, like a lot of the people in the Action Academy community, because it's split in half. Talk more about that specific process, about how you leveraged depreciation for cash flow, because that is freaking genius. More people need to do that.
Right. Honestly, I'm not a genius. I don't.
Yeah, you're right. You're
try
terrible,
to say,
dude.
I don't even try and say I am. Like
That's a great idea.
Know.
Nobody talks about that.
I don't know, dude, and it's just such a. I know of the concept of it. I know. Hey, you want to take the tax benefits from it? Take it. And so I let him take it, and he used his accountant. He also let the business write off the tax as well. So like the cash flow that I was getting every month, all of that was pure cash flow. I was still getting all of that money tax-free, paying no tax on that. He just got some extra benefits to pull into his personal portfolio and take a little bit extra of that cash flow or those tax benefits there. But as far as that stuff, I don't know about how it's done. All I know is I wanted to get the deal done.
All I care about, my brother in Christ, all I care about is how you structured it. That is all I care about. How did you find this guy, and what does this conversation look like?
So the way that I found him, I was introduced. I was trying to buy a building, and this is the importance of networking in real estate, right? I was trying to buy a building from one guy. He introduced me to his lender so I could try and buy his building. I didn't end up buying that building, but I got introduced to the lender. So now I'm talking to this lender, and I'm trying to buy another deal. And I'm talking to this lender about low down payment options, all this stuff. I don't think I could get this done for you, but I have an investor who buys deals also, and I think he could be interested in this. So what I did is I set up a time and a Zoom call with this investor. I went on Bigger Pockets. I made all the spreadsheets. I did the rental calculator. I showed the ROI that I'm getting on my current deals and on deals that I can find for him and for us to buy together, and basically showed him like, hey, I've got the hustle and I've got the knowledge, just like we talked about earlier. So if you've got the capital, we can make this happen. And I basically built that relationship, showed him, and it's easy, right? You go on Bigger Pockets, you plug in these numbers, it spits out a sheet for you, and it says, this is your return, this is your cash flow, this is what you do, and you look like a freaking expert, like you created this document. For the guys who don't know about Bigger Pockets, you look like this genius. Basically utilize that and talk to that sheet. Obviously, I knew my stuff at that time. I could talk pretty fluently about it, and made him trust me enough to throw in on a deal with me.
Man, that was freaking genius to do that, because everyone is always so flustered about like that binary thinking is what it's called. It's all or nothing, A or B. And you're like, hey, man, look, this is what I want. You were very crystal clear about what specifically you wanted, right? You knew what you didn't want. You were like, okay, so I need to find somebody that's on the other end of this equation. So if you guys think about it from Matt's perspective, because I think how you structured it was the correct way, because you need the cash flow. You need what's almost called like fast cash to be able to get out of that job. You need that recurring cash to be able to earn your freedom. And then once your freedom is earned, then that's when you can start focusing on taking the equity plays and start doing the big commercial deals that we'll get into in the back half of the show, where all of a sudden you start having the net worth swings.